and welcome back. This is Raul. This time around, I thought that we would revisit one of the modules that we've looked at previously, but this time around, I thought we would look at it in a slightly different way. Now, if you were with us in a couple of the filtering demos a while back, when we talked about the Doepfer A101-2 low-pass gate right here, we mainly examined it in terms of its use as a low-pass filter. Just to review a little bit, if you weren't with us at that time, this particular module has three modes. When the switch is in the far left position, it is acting as a low-pass filter, 12 decibel low-pass filter. In the middle position, it's in a combined mode. Now you're probably saying, combined what? Well, on the far right, it acts as a VCA when it's switched on the far right. And then if you remember from just a second ago, on the far left, it says low pass, so it acts as a low pass filter. So in the middle mode, or combined mode, it acts as both a VCA and a low pass filter. So that's kind of what we're going to focus on this time around in the demos that are coming up, is we're going to take a deeper look at the combined mode and the VCA mode. But to start out with, we're going to do a little bit of review on the filtering part. We're not going to go too deep into it because we did two demonstrations on that already, but I do want to just familiarize you with that type of concept and the type of sound that you get when this is acting as a low-pass filter, in case you weren't with us during those demos. So I'm going to start by flipping my switch all the way over here into low-pass mode. And shortly we're going to be sending a signal into our audio in here. But before we do that, I want to call your attention to a couple of the dials here on this module. This one at the top labeled F/A, and this dial over here labeled RES, which stands for resonance. I'm calling your attention to these two dials because as we move through the different modes, these two dials will actually change in function. While we're going to be using the module in LP or low pass mode, these two dials are going to control at the top frequency. Up here, this is going to be our cutoff. And then at the bottom, this is going to control resonance, just like it's labeled. Now, in the middle mode, in combined low pass and VCA mode, this acts as both a control for the frequency of the filter and the amplitude. We'll see a deeper look at what exactly that means for our sound once we get to the demo portion of that. But then I'm going to just jump over to VCA mode and talk about what those two dials will do when we're in that mode. So when we're in VCA mode, the resonance knob for the most part is no longer going to control resonance because it's not going to act as a filter anymore. It's basically just acting as a voltage-controlled amplifier. If you're unfamiliar with that term, I'll sort of kind of just give a basic explanation of what that does. Voltage-controlled amplifier is something that will amplify your sound, of course, but it will allow you to send a signal to it, also in here, CV1 and CV2, that will allow you to change the amount of amplitude of whatever signal you have feeding into here. So the common term you've probably heard thrown around is tremolo, and that's something where the volume goes up and then it goes down, volume goes up, volume goes down. And that's one of the uses for a VCA in modular synthesis. Now, there are other uses for it, but for the terms of this demo on this module, we are going to focus on just the VCA mode in terms of processing audio. So what we'll see later on is we'll feed an audio signal either from our noise source over here or from our VCO going into audio in, and then we'll show you what turning the amplitude of that up or down sounds like, and then also maybe sending an LFO into one of these two inputs here and dynamically changing it, so having it automatically turn the volume up and automatically turn the volume down. Okay, so that's kind of a brief outline of what we're going to be looking at in the upcoming demonstrations. But we're going to start, as I said a little while ago, by giving you just a little taste of what the filtering part of this module does. So I'm going to flip over into LP mode, low pass mode. And first, before we do anything, I want you to hear the sound source that we have, and we're going to hear it completely unfiltered. So I'm going to patch it right into my mixer, and we should have some signal here right there. So there is our unpatched or unfiltered sound right now. That's a square wave going into our mixer. Pretty standard. And I just want you to get that in your ears so you kind of have an idea of what it's going to change like when we go into the filter and then back into the mixer. So I'm going to unpatch that. There we go. And now I'm going to go into our filter. There we go. And I'm going to patch out from my filter. And I'm going to go into my mixer. But before I do that, I'm going to bring the resonance down. As if you've seen any of the previous demos, you know that the resonance can get a little crazy on this module. So I'm turning it down, and now I'm going to go into the mixer. Here we go. And there is our square wave once again. But you can definitely tell that something has changed with this wave. It sounds a little bit muffled, for sure. Don't think there's anything wrong with their speakers or anything, but that is the module actually acting on that signal. So let's see what happens when we adjust the frequency of our filter. So I'm going to turn it up. There we go. And so the further you go clockwise, the more open the filter is. And then the further you go counterclockwise, the more and more closed the filter becomes until you achieve no sound going through the filter whatsoever. And then somewhere in the middle, you know, you can find that magic level about what you like. So there you go. That's the filtering part. Now we're not going to go into modulating the low pass mode. We did several examples of that in the previous demos, so if you're interested in how that works or want to see some of that, check out some of the previous demos. But I am going to just demonstrate that, just the cutoff, what it sounds like. And I'm going to bring in a little bit of resonance as well. So here we go. I'm going to bring in some resonance, and right around the 4 o'clock position, I believe we should start hearing the filter go into self-oscillation. So getting there, getting closer. Right about there. There we go. So it's going into self-oscillation. And right about there, it also becomes a very piercing sound as well. Very characteristic of a filter that is going into self-oscillation mode. I'm bringing down the frequency so we can hear what that's going to sound like as we bring this value down, because this sort of character is going to change when we go into the combined mode here shortly. Okay. Great. So I'm going to unpatch that. There we go. And that is going to be our little summary section of this particular demonstration. In the next demonstration, we're going to go into the VCA mode, and then we'll go into the combined mode. So stay tuned for those two demonstrations. and I hope you enjoy them. Hope that this was a good little overview and summary of what we've seen before. And I hope to see you there because there's going to be more fun demonstrations to watch. So stay tuned.